Internet people. I'm just checking out some stuff and things. I'm gonna read all the things about stuff. Okay. So, Framer X. The future of design is here. F. Framer X. Yeah. Alright. Okay, that's a cool animation. Oh, that's fun. Yeah, that's good stuff. Okay. Okay. What do we got here? So, okay, look at all this stuff. Let's watch this video. The all-new Framer F.
Once again, here we go. Know the name, know the flow. Turn me up a little more. I'm setting traps, I'm alone. You know you whack, I'm a maniac. Boy, you know I'm black to the bone. Pick a place, pick a date. I go Goku, pick a load. Thought you was good, huh? Take you out back, drag you through the woods, huh? Thought I was weak, huh? You ain't see the work I put in all week, huh? Give me that, where the city at? Nitty gritty, this ain't gonna be pretty, Jack. Not afraid, get up out the way. Y'all used to hate, look at what you made. When it all goes down.
What's awesome is that this music plays the entire time that you're using Framer.
Hey.
Yeah! Designer website!
Hey.
Awesome! Apps and stuff. Yeah, look at it. So hardcore!
I won't die in this town.
I won't die in the town. Anyway. So awesome. Awesome website. Awesome design. Awesome everything. Yeah, your new favorite design tool. Yeah. Framer X has all the features. All of them. Every single one. Oh, wait. No, I didn't finish the sentence. It has all the features you need to draw everything. Everything. Okay, everything from custom icons to intricate illustrations. Fine-tune your designs with our advanced path editor. Export anything from your canvas. Anything in your canvas, and more. So you can export anything from your canvas and export things that aren't even on your canvas. What? I'm assuming that's what the and more means. Okay, I'm kidding. Icons, yay. Draw with predictive snapping. Predictive snapping, that sounds so awesome. Curve bending, yeah. It's like Avatar, the last curve bender. And angle locking. Framer X. Oh, they need to put a non-breaking space there. That's an awkward. That's upsetting me. I'm gonna fix that for them. No, I'm just gonna keep reading. Okay. Sorry, with predictive snapping, curve bending, and angle locking, Framer X's path tool is truly unlike any other. Style. From blurs to blending modes. That's really hard to say. From blurs to blending modes, multiple shadows, and border controls. There are hundreds of ways to style your designs. Of all the ways, there are hundreds. Export. Export everything from your entire canvas to a single icon. Copy and paste assets, or grab production-ready CSS or SVG code. Awesome. This guy says, I've been playing around with some of the illustration tools in Framer X, and whoa! They're crazy powerful. It's Justin Mezel from Pluralsight. Look at him. He seems really happy about it. The absolute best layout tools. Design responsive layouts like you never could before. Framer X is the only tool that automatically adapts your layout when you resize your canvas and lets you use flexible stacks to easily rearrange elements. Dude. Start with layout. Oh, I learned more, yeah. Okay, so check it out. All right, so you can grab that thing, move it around, and the other things move out of the way automatically. It's a stack. It's so awesome. And its stretchiness, responsiveness, Like when you grab and resize the thing, it it puts stuff where you would want it to be instead of not there. Like in Photoshop, have you ever done a design in Photoshop? It's like it's not that like good like this. It's bad, not like this. Okay, adaptive design. Design for any device and on design for any device on any platform. FramerX keeps UI elements intact whenever you resize a frame. That is awesome stuff. Hierarchy. Our layout tool automatically infers constraints and hierarchy, and you can even customize further in the properties panel. Stacks. Easily distribute, position, and rearrange elements evenly on your canvas with the power of Flexbox. Yeah, man, Flexbox, so good. The team at Dribbble got a demo of FramerX this afternoon, and I was literally blown away. Like, there was a fan, and it was really cold. And no, I was figuratively blown away. Framer just keeps getting better and better. Not by leaps, but bounds. Wait, which is bigger, a leap or a bound? I'm guessing that Sarah, I can't pronounce that name. I gotta figure out how to pronounce that name now. How do I say...
Kunnel. Kunnel.
Kunnel?
Kunnel.
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 Kunnel, okay. Sarah Kunnel from Dribbble says, the team at Dribbble got a demo of FramerX this afternoon and I was blown away. Framer just keeps getting better and better. Not by leaps, but bounds. And rebounds, because it's Dribbble. Huh? Basketball. Anyway. Everyday interactions, made in seconds. Create high-fidelity scrolling, paging, and screen-to-screen transitions with our powerful interactive tools. All you have to do is point and click. Can't just point. You also have to click. Sorry, guys. No, we're not there yet. Technology is not there yet. We can't just point. You also have to click. I'm sorry. Yeah, so this is neat. So basically, you grab a frame here, drag it, and then you get a little noodle arm on the frame. See the little noodle arms? You can drag it to another frame, and then that hooks up your transitions. And then you can like use a drop down here to define how the transition transitions. It's very useful. Fast. Link screens, scroll content, and create beautiful page transitions in just a few clicks. Prototyping never felt so easy. Advanced. Easily create nested scrolling, pagination, full navigation, modal dialogues, and so much more with FramerX. High fidelity. Leverage our powerful physics engine and customize individual transitions to make it feel like the real thing. Physics engine. Interesting. Make it feel like the real thing. Cool. Okay. Katrina Batina from Artsy says, not needing to know code, but having code power all components makes FramerX a groundbreaking tool that brings together the product design toolkit. Yeah. Interactive components for everything! Components in FramerX aren't just any components. They're fully interactive, reusable pieces that can include everything from live maps to real data to video players. Check it out. So this component here is like a phone top thing. So you can like set a thing down here to set the battery percentage. See? Battery percentage stuff. The appearance and what carrier it is. So you can, instead of Verizon, it's Framer. They're paying Framer for their internet in this design, apparently. Neat. Okay, reuse. Reuse. Set up components once and reuse them anywhere. You'll never have to design the same thing twice. Customize. Update the master component to reflect changes across the board, or refine details on instances. Now, this is a really, really cool feature that I have never seen anybody do before. But, you know, I haven't looked at every single design tool in the history of the universe, but I've never seen it before. And I think it's super, super awesome, and I'll tell you about it later. Okay, React-based. Take components to the next level with React. Add logic, interactions, real data, animations, and more. That's not all, and there's more too. Meng 2, Design Plus Code, says your FramerX components can be a single source of truth. Your whole team can contribute both design and code without having to recreate anything. On top of that, you have access to thousands of components powered by a vibrant community. That is a huge, huge deal. The world's first in-app design store. Really? I thought Adobe had something like that. But maybe not. Maybe this is different. The world's first in-app design store. Find everything from interactive design systems to icons and UI elements in the FramerX store. Get a head start on your next project, or publish your own components for the community. Can we charge money for our components? That would be neat. They call it a store. It's not just a downloadifier or a package manager or a place to get stuff. It is a store. Interesting. Intriguing. I am intrigued. Store. Look at all this neat stuff you can get on your own time because I'm scrolling. Anyway, explore. Browse thousands of packages full of interactive design components like native interactions, UI kits, uno mas, and more. Wait, that's just one more. Anyway. Install packages and then drag and drop them onto your canvas. They even stay up to date when changes are made. Publish. Upload your own packages instantly to the app to help others and let them build upon your work. George Kadenberg III of Facebook says, the best part is that Framer doesn't abstract you away from the core. You end up with a large pool of power users who can contribute components back to the masses. That's a huge deal. That is all. It's a big deal. I'll talk more about that later. But what exactly will you talk more about later? I'll talk more about that later. Ha ha. Exclusive team features. Keep your interactive design system completely in sync with a private store. Get in touch to find out how FramerX can improve your team's workflow, and so much more. So much. So, looks neat. It looks like Dropdocs design and green dog head logo and this F thing each have their own private store full of components and stuff. Neat. React meets design. Use actual React in your projects to create interactive components from scratch. Want more control? Create custom UI in the Properties panel for your components. This is also a huge deal. So this thing here is it's a slider. So this slider here is this code here makes this slider here be a thing. This thing is this thing. And these things are these things. Property controls. So you can define the value and the tint. And they're not showing any other property controls. I guess they must be off screen over here. But in your code, you can define these buttons and sliders and stuff that show up in the UI. It's so awesome. So awesome. Import. Easily import your existing production components into FramerX, and then start building upon them. Customize. Create custom interfaces that display in the property panel so you can completely fine-tune your components. Animate. Use code to add animations. Maintain a global state. Maintain a global state. Make components communicate with each other, and more things. Dan Abramov from React says, I welcome every FramerX designer to the React.js community. Please feel at home. We love to help you learn and answer questions. React components transformed sharing UI code for me. I hope that the FramerX store, again with the known-breaking space, they just really need to tighten that up. Anyway, I hope that the FramerX store will empower so many more people to experience the same. Dan Abramov. So, I should tell me what company this is when I hover over it, because I really have no idea. I mean, I should know who this is, I assume, but anyway. Try FramerX. All right. The world's most advanced tool for interactive design has arrived. Get started with FramerX today. But I already did earlier. Take that. Okay. All these links. What link shall we start with first? I guess layout, because it's on the top. Layout. Adaptive layouts. Automatically. So much font. I wonder what font size this is. Yes, I'm going to make you deal with this. Okay. Font size. 110. That's not small. Okay. What font is this? Oh, it's Network Resource. Interesting. I love that font. That's my favorite font. Network Resource. Yeah. Seriously, though, what font is this? Font family. Colfax. I've never heard of that. Like, I've heard of every font. I've not heard of every font, shockingly enough. Anyway. Adaptive layouts automatically. With FramerX, layout design never felt so simple. Seriously, guys, this is such a huge deal. Get ready to design for every device on any platform. Okay, let's watch this video.
In FramerX, you can design responsive layouts faster and more intuitively than in any other tool. You're also naturally being taught to think about how elements of your product will interact, even as you're designing them.
That is a really good point, is that as you're designing your app, it makes you think about things in a more component-y sort of way, and in a more reusable sort of way, just because it naturally exists in the same kind of component hierarchy space. It shares all the same concepts, well, a lot of the same concepts with actual React implementation code, and actual React implementation code shares a lot of the same concepts across the board with all kind of UI hierarchical framework things. So using FramerX and learning to be good at it will naturally teach you how to get better at componentization and all of the good design and engineering practices and stuff. And then once you start learning React, you already know kind of the really difficult and slow to learn conceptual stuff, and then you just have to learn the tedious, like syntax, where to put the semicolons and square brackets and stuff.
One way we handle this is with frames. Let's click on Frame in the Layout Tools panel, and maybe select an iPhone 8.
All right.
Once we've selected...
So what just happened here is he created a new frame on the canvas. The canvas is just, infinity of space with nothing. And then a frame is basically, it's a rectangle. It's a rectangle that has some nifty features. If you want to render anything in Framer, you'll use a frame. I know, framer, right? Yeah.
Selected a device, we can hit F at any time.
Oh, and as far as selecting a device, all that really means is it just sets the size of your frame to the size of that device. That's it. It's not like, it doesn't give you super iPhone powers just because you click that. No, it's just the size of an iPhone screen.
And our previously selected device will automatically appear as the next screen on the canvas. Because frames already contain automatic hierarchy and layout rules, any frames placed within other frames will automatically nest and define their own parent-child relationship.
Okay, that's a huge deal. Oh, man. Dealing with layer hierarchies in Photoshop and whatever is such an unbelievable nightmare. Like, building anything non-trivial, it gets to be such a nightmare. Like, you want to drag things around, and like, you've got all these like nested groups and things, even with Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop. Like, this is my area of expertise and my experience. I haven't really used Sketch or Figma or what's my favorite one? What is it called? Affinity Designer. Oh man, I love Affinity Designer so much. But I haven't really used those as much, so I don't know if they have fancy whiz bangs that are super awesomer than Adobe stuff, but my experience is mostly with Adobe stuff, so I'm comparing this with Adobe stuff. And even Photoshop and Illustrator work a little bit differently in that way. Illustrator is more objectivity, but with FramerX, oh man, you just drag something into an area and it automatically, FramerX automatically re-hierarchifies that thing so that it's nested the way that you want it to be. So you don't have to fiddle with it. You can just design stuff and it kind of just works. You don't have to waste your time noodling around with these stupid layers. It's like a huge percentage of the pain of making stuff just evaporated right there with that one. I mean, I have no idea how they implemented this. It's probably really complicated. With just that insane amount of research and development and user testing and whatever else they did in order to achieve this effect. But with just that, it's so good. Anyway, I'm really not good at explaining this, but
We also use frames to design interface elements like buttons or navigation bars. In this example, we've populated this screen with list items, most
good job.
of which are frames themselves. We've created our interface elements out of frames and not shapes because we want certain UI elements to also be responsive to their environment. Watch now as we resize this screen, everything from the list items and text to the navigation bar.
I've seen this before, but otherwise it would be like, you know, because like try doing that in Photoshop. Like design something in Photoshop and say, hey, the thing on the right, it should be on the right. And the thing on the left, it should be on the left. And all the space in between should just be, you know, squish and stretch as you would expect, as any thing you build in the real world, you know, in the web with code just does that. You know, if you just, I mean, you could use tables. You could do this 20 years ago, but not in Photoshop. Sorry, I rag on Photoshop. I love Photoshop. Photoshop is great. But for photos, right? Anyway, poor Photoshop. It gets all this abuse. I still pay for it. I love it. Anyway, goodbye. I mean, wait, continue. Right, yeah.
All adapt accordingly. This responsiveness is key to interface design work and makes it intuitively easy to design across multiple screens and platforms.
Yeah.
Though we do automatically guess the layout constraints and hierarchy.
Okay, so what's cool about that is, so check this out. So basically, he designed this thing once. He put all these things in a frame, in the layer hierarchy, and it all just works. But then you can render this frame in multiple other frames using ways to do that. And it stretches to fit those other ones. Wow, that was really not clear. But trust me, it's awesome.
Though we do automatically guess the layout constraints and hierarchy, we can further fine-tune everything using the Properties panel.
Right, so they guess everything. So like if you position something on the right, they're going to assume that you want it to like stick to the right, unless you tell it otherwise. Like you can go in and fiddle with all the things, but by default, you don't have to. If you just like, it kind of just does what you would expect by default, which is just, it's good.
On the top right of our Properties panel, we have Layout Controls, where we can pin or unpin the position of any selected frame or even text. As we hover over this, notice a simulator that gives you a preview of how your frame will adapt within the context of its parent. To take layouts a step further, we now have a brand new Stacks tool. Stacks are especially good for expressing truly fluid layouts.
Okay, so more with frames. If you want all that responsiveness and all the pinning and all that jazz, you have to use a frame. So that's where I was going wrong in Framer before. Is I was like, why do I get pinning sometimes? Why do I not get pinning other times? Like, oh, I didn't use a frame. Frames in Framer. Got it. Frames within frames within frames. It's just frames all the way down. Just like, think of the frame as the div, but not really. It's like that, but not at all like that at all. But sort of.
because they automate things like distribution and alignment. Here's how it works.
Oh, they were talking about
Let's
stacks
first
now.
select
Stacks are
the
super
Stack
awesome.
tool, or press S, and then wrap all these list items together into one horizontal stack. Notice that everything aligns perfectly, with the items evenly distributed.
Okay, now what just happened was it was not super clear what exactly just happened. So before he had just 3 random things just sitting there. You resize everything and they're not going to do anything. They're just like pinned to the left or whatever they do by default. Absolutely positioned on the screen, to say, things in a CSS kind of way. But he just dragged a rectangle over it, press S, drag a rectangle, and now that's in a stack. He just stacked those things by stacking a stack on the things, which, because he dragged it around those things, FramerX automatically figured out that he wanted the things he drew the thing around to be children of the stack. So now the stack is managing the layout of those things. But since he already had them positioned, it didn't do anything. Visually, you didn't see anything happen. But normally, if you just put some like higgledy-piggledy random things on your thing, and then you drag a stack around it, then they all get positioned nicely automatically. That didn't happen here because they were already positioned nicely before he dragged the thing around it.
We can further customize this using the Properties panel. Say, to change the way the elements are distributed, or even play around with the gap and padding.
So under the hood, this is using Flexbox.
Now let's reorder these
CSS
icons. Thing. It's as easy as picking it up and moving it around within the stack.
So that is such a huge deal. So awesome. You don't have to go to the source. You don't have to go to the layers thing and change the layer hierarchy. You don't have to noodle with any of that stuff. It's just you drag the thing, you move it to where you want it to be, the other things move to the other places. It's just that easy. Oh man. It's like, if you're a programmer, this doesn't not seem like a big deal. It's like Flexbox, yeah, not a big, yeah, who cares? But like, try doing this in Photoshop. That would be like so many seconds of like, noodling around, like doing math of like, okay, what's the positioning, what's the ratio, or trying to use some wacky plugin, some weird nerd wrote at some point and then just completely abandoned. I'm talking about me. I made a thing that does this kind of thing for Photoshop. Kinda. I'm not sure if I even released it, and like I haven't touched that code since then. So any of the poor people who are using it are just like, sorry. And then there was like some plugin for Sketch that did something like some of this stuff. I'm not exactly sure, but then like the latest version of Sketch, they like changed things, and now it doesn't work anymore. This is just in FramerX. It's just a basic feature. It's like one of the most basic features of FramerX. It just works. And it's the exact same concept as Flexbox. Not just the same concept, it is literally the exact same implementation and code. It is literally Flexbox. So anything that you can do with this, you can do in production because it's literally the same exact code.
As we see here, Framer does all the heavy lifting for us by rearranging the other icons while keeping all the distribution and alignment intact.
Yeah.
Stacks are an incredibly powerful tool because you can use them to design your entire layout and even nest them within each other. Here's an example.
Stacks of stacks within stacks.
Let's turn both of these lists into stacks.
Done.
Like that.
Good job.
And then wrap this.
Oh, see how he wrapped it around the thing, and then they kind of moved a little bit because it changed the layout.
Stacks we just created into
Wait, watch
one
it.
larger stack. Now that they are grouped.
Oh, see, and that one moved a little bit too because the gap, whatever the gap is defined, is a little bit different than the random spacing that it had before.
We can rearrange these items within individual stacks, but also within the larger grouped stack. As we've demonstrated, frames and stacks make it extremely efficient and intuitive to design all kinds of interfaces in FramerX.
Yeah, man. So good. Anyway, so now we watched all that. Okay, design smarter. FramerX includes automated grouping, adaptive layouts, and flexible stacks so you can effortlessly arrange elements on your canvas without worrying about even distribution, alignment, or responsiveness. Instantly adaptive. Our layout tool automatically infers or figures out for you constraints and hierarchy. It figures out where to put stuff and how to pin it and stuff like that, and how it will move around and stretch when you resize stuff. Sorry to translate this into whatever language it is that I speak. And you can even customize further in the properties panel. Pin or unpin the position of a layer and watch as the simulator shows how your selection will adapt. Yeah, so that's the thing. The simulator is just, like you hover over this and it gives you like, this is how it's going to pin and stretch and stuff. So if you have these things clicked right here, then it's going to be positioned top left when you resize the box. But if you were to pin this one instead of that one, then it's going to be pinned bottom left. And it will give you an example of that. But if you pin top and bottom, then it's going to stretch vertically. Okay, flexible stacks. FramerX introduces a new kind of layout tool, stacks. Now you can easily distribute, position, and rearrange elements evenly on your canvas with the power of Flexbox. Powerful positioning. Get ready to design responsive lists and grids better than you could before. Better. FramerX includes fraction and relative sizing, so you can fine-tune with exceptional control. I have barely started to dig into what all is possible there, but they even have like fractional units. I'm not exactly sure what those are or how they work, but I'm gonna look it up because I don't like not knowing things about stuff. Next level layouts. They're not just floor level. They're not just ground level. They're next level. Tailor everything in your stacks. In FramerX, you can change the direction, distribution type, and alignment of elements, or completely customize the spacing between elements. So you got direction. So your stack can be a side-to-side stack or an up and downy stack. Or what is this called in, this is like flex direction row, flex direction row, or flex direction column. Distribute, start, whatever that means. And then alignment and gap and padding and stuff. Okay. Wonder how they're implementing the gap. I'll have to look that up by digging into the codes. Drag, drop, and insert. Need to add a new layer to your list, grid, or navigation? Simply drop it within the appropriate stack and watch as all other elements adapt accordingly. This is such a huge deal. So huge. Okay, rearrange elements. Changing the position of elements on your canvas takes seconds in FramerX. It takes way less than seconds. I mean, come on. Just drag elements around within a stack and all spacing will remain intact. Like, seriously, all these layout tools remove so much mental complexity and tedious little... Anyway, I've ranted about that already. Juliet Shen of Snapchat says, the new product from Framer is so cool. It includes so many details that just happen. Such a natural and magical tool. So natural and magical. Try FramerX. Yada, yada, yada. Okay. Features. Drawing. A modern graphic design toolkit. Advanced vector editing made simple. Draw everything from logos and icons to detailed illustrations with FramerX. Look at all this stuff. You can design these things in here with stuff. With this graphics thing. It's SVG, I think. Path editing for pros. Fine-tune your designs with our advanced path editor. Create custom shapes with Boolean operations. Boolean operations just means you draw one shape, you draw another shape, you put them near each other, and then you do a thing like the layer on the bottom should be... the layer on the top should be used to cut out a hole in the layer, the graphic below, or combine them into one shape, or, stuff like that. Those are Boolean operations. And export anything from your canvas with production-ready CSS and SVG codes. Powerful path tool. With predictive snapping, curve bending, and angle locking, FramerX's path tool is truly unlike any other. Double-click a shape to edit its path. Drag segments and add calculated center points. SVG-based vector editing. Powered by SVG technology, FramerX's full-featured vector editing toolkit lets you dial down to the details. Get ready to easily draw icons and illustrations. Oh, I'm ready. Now I just need is talent. And, to spend some time trying it. Unite, join, and more. These are the Boolean operations I was referring to earlier. Use Boolean operations to create custom icons, unite shapes, and join paths. Now you can combine path elements without flattening. Oh, that's nice. So they stay, so the Boolean operations between the different shapes inside of a graphic are live, and you can edit them later. Neat. Okay, all the fills, all of them. FramerX includes color, gradient, and image fills. Manage your own document-wide presets and right-click to export optimized CSS. Export anything. In FramerX, you can export everything from your entire canvas to a single icon. Copy and paste assets or grab production-ready CSS or SVG code. You can do different sizes and stuff too. So on the little export thing, if you click like a thing, for example, a frame, and then you over on the side of the FramerX thing, layout, UI, panel, whatever it's called. There's this thing at the bottom. You click the little plus. It adds a new line here with the scaling factor, the suffix of the file name that gets generated, and as well as the the format. And then you can click it to export them. I wonder if there's any way to like batch export all of them. Probably. Endless effects. I'm sure there's some end somewhere. You have 700 gigabytes of RAM. You're like, I'm gonna add effects forever. I'm sure you will run into an end. But they are effectively endless effects. Effectively endless effects. Haha. Customize layers to perfection with FramerX. From blurs to blending modes, multiple shadows and border controls. There are hundreds of ways to style your designs. Hundreds of ways to style your designs. Awesome. John Gold from Airbnb, totally mind blown by FramerX. This is the design tool you have been waiting for. Okay, like, John Gold's legit. If he's telling you this, that's a big deal. Because, he knows what's up. Components. Fully interactive components, period. Clickable buttons. Why is there a period in a title? I'm sure that was a design decision that was made intentionally. Clickable buttons, working input fields, and real video players. Create reusable visual and interactive components. Only in FramerX. Psh. Watch overview. I shall.
When designing, it's natural to reuse the same standard elements across a single or multiple projects. These groups of elements.
You would think that would be natural, but you may be surprised by how infrequently that happens. Like, let's redesign everything every time. Let's rebuild every single button every single time. Let's copy and paste it from the old one. Anyway.
Elements are called components.
Yeah.
And in FramerX, components can be both visual and interactive. Cool. From static headers and footers to working sliders, toggles, and forms, components help speed things up for a faster and smarter workflow. Let's start with a visual component. Say we want to reuse this button we've designed throughout our project. To turn it into a component, let's navigate over to the Components tab. Here we head to the New Component section in the bottom left, name our component, and then pick From Selection. Pro tip, you can also hit Command-K as a shortcut to turn any selected element or group of elements into a component.
Okay.
Now that our component is available for reuse,
Command-K for component, because Command-C, I'm assuming, is already for copy. Haha.
Let's drag it onto the canvas and place it right here. This second button component is now an instance, which contains all the same properties as the master. We can override properties like size and text so they only apply to this instance, like this. But let's say we want to adjust the color of the button across our design. All we have to do is alter the master. Now this change will be reflected on the other button.
So now, thinking through what just happened here, like trying to do this in many other design tools. I don't know about Sketch. I don't know about Figma. But like I know Adobe apps. Trying to do this in Adobe apps historically was very, very difficult. Like you can make something a component or whatever they call it there, a symbol, and then you can reuse it as is. Maybe you can like resize it or whatever. But like you can't change the text on it and it still be the linked in and stuff. Unless somehow they've added that feature and I've just not known about it. But
and any other instances of the master component. Components in Framer X are designed to be reusable, but they're also highly customizable and designed to account for every workflow. For example, you can override the properties of a single instance at any time. Here's how we do that. First, let's turn all the elements of this list item into a single component by pressing Command-K. We can rename it in the Layer panel, and then duplicate it on the canvas to add 2 more list items. Now, we probably want to override these 2 other list items and populate them with different photos, titles, and button labels, like so. And if we don't like the result, we can always right-click to revert back to master. Interactive
like that's all really, really awesome. They effortlessly create nested, linked components that are still live and attached to their parent, and then override details within them with like zero configuration and fiddling. You draw a thing, you design up some little component, make it a component, then make a bunch of copies, and then change all the details in all the copies, and they're still linked parent-child style or master instance style.
Components, though powerful in execution, are just as easy to use in Framer X. You can find anything you made or installed from the store available in the Components tab of your project. Let's drag a component onto the canvas, say this switch, and place it on our design. Since we need 2 of them for this settings screen, let's duplicate the switch. Most components work out of the box, but you can still customize them to your liking. If they're available, these options will appear in the Properties panel on the right, when the interactive component is selected. In the case of this
By interactive component, they mean a component that is made of code.
switch component, the maker has exposed custom UI that allows us to set the default state of the switch and change its tint. So go ahead and change the tint of both switches, and then set the first to false and the second to true. Now let's see if it all works. We can preview our design by clicking on the play icon in the top right. Here you can see we've successfully customized and added fully functioning switches to this settings screen.
That's also such a huge deal. I mean, there's like seconds left.
As demonstrated, it's now that easy to add advanced interactions and animations to your designs.
Design once, use everywhere. Stop redrawing and start reusing UI. Animation and rich media elements. Update the master to reflect changes across the board, or override a single instance. Interactive components come with built-in functionality, though you can dig into React to customize logic, real data, dynamic embeds, and more. Everything's reusable. Create a master component with a single click. Then, alter the master to see changes reflected across all instances. With smart overrides, you can even fix the size and position of an instance without breaking its link to the master. Simply drag and drop. Open the Components panel for an organized, searchable, and filterable overview. When you're ready to use a component, simply drag and drop onto the canvas to create a new instance, then customize as you please. Custom properties. Extend the power of Framer X by customizing every last detail. Adjust the text, styling, and functionality of any component using custom UI options made available in the Properties panel. Code, meet components. Interactive components in Framer X are all React-based. which means you can build upon your designs instead of replicating them in production. Work with real data. Thanks to the flexibility of code components, you can work with real data in your designs. Pull in randomly generated user information, photos and locations, or use any public API. This is a huge deal. Rich media elements. Drag completely functional music and video players directly onto your canvas, or drop a map component into any frame and customize its size or style. Open the preview window at any point to interact with your working prototypes in real time. Tanner Christensen from Atlassian says, FramerX is without a doubt the future of what product design tools will be. It's the little things that make this apparent. From flexible stacks to modifying components inline and animating entire flows with a few clicks. This is the future of our tools. Interactions. Interactive design made simple. Design high fidelity scrolling, paging, and screen-to-screen transitions directly on the canvas. Let's watch an overview.
One of the best things about FramerX is that you can now design native-level transitions just by using our selection of interactive tools. What we've done is taken the power of code and wrapped it up in an user-friendly interface that allows you to connect between screens, design a page flow, and even a content scrollable area. So let's say you've perfected your latest app flow and you're ready to start prototyping. We've set up the first few frames of a photo app here just to show you how it all works. In this flow, we want to make sure that after the user clicks the sign-in button, they land in a feed full of inspirational photos. To create that, we simply select the button, click on the link tool, or press L, and connect it to the feed frame. And voila, we've just created our first flow.
Effectively, what happens here is that each frame that is a direct child of the canvas or top level frame can be noodled up to some other frame to transition to it. And yeah, I need to learn more about it before I say more about it.
We can use the link tool to design all kinds of flows. Let's say we now want this menu to appear over the feed when we click on the menu icon.
Right, so this sign-in button is also, it has a frame wrapped around it, as you can see up here. So this frame within a frame can also be noodled up to some other frame.
Select the menu icon and use the link tool to connect it to the menu frame. We can then customize the transition in the Properties panel. In this case, we want it to overlay in from the right. Setting up a scrollable area is just as easy. Select the scroll tool and draw a scroll view in the feed. We'll then link to this scroll frame that contains the content we want populated in the feed. This secondary frame allows us to design the scroll view in its entirety without it being clipped. Notice that all the content in the scroll frame is automatically mirrored in our...
Right, so what's going on here, basically there's a frame here that's really, really tall. It goes, as long as the content they want. And they design every single thing there, and then they render it inside of this box here by making it, by using this scroll frame. So that when you're previewing it, scrolling this basically just scrolls this. Under the hood, this is a React element, and this noodle defines this thing as the children, or the only child, of the scroll component.
Our feed, even as we update it. Now that we have everything set up, let's see how it all looks and feels. We're going to open up the preview by clicking on the play icon in the top right of our toolbar. And there you have it. A beautifully functional, multi-screen design with a scrollable area that took just seconds to rapidly prototype. Try it all out for yourself in FramerX.
Prototyping for everyone. FramerX offers a set of intuitive tools that allow anyone to create native-level interactions in just a few clicks. Use the link tool to add transitions like push and overlay, or create nested scroll views with multi-directional gestures. Prototype in seconds. Link screens, scroll content, and create flawless page transitions. Design it all with our brand new interactive tools. Advanced scrolling. Draw scrollable areas, then connect it to your content layers. There's no limit to what you can create. Nested scrolling, vertical slides, fixed headers, and more. I need to play with that. From screen to screen. Go from static to motion in minutes. Simply click and drag to connect between screens and layers, and we'll take care of the animations. Customize transitions. Choose from a selection of transition types like push and overlay, or customize the direction of your animations. Leverage our physics engine throughout for incredibly smooth 60 FPS native level flows. Live feedback. Preview your designs using our versatile preview window. View a single frame or get a feel for your entire prototype. Pick any of the presentation options, from hands to photorealistic device frames. Perfect pagination. Design swipeable UI elements using the page tool, or link to frames containing multiple cards. Connect, customize, and swipe. So this isn't real yet. It's coming soon. Pagination. Katrina Bettina from Artsy says, not needing to know code, but having code power all components makes FramerX a groundbreaking tool that brings together the product design toolkit. And the store. Let's jump to React. Powered by React. Create interactive components from scratch. Import production components into your projects, and so much more. Only in FramerX! Look, it's code! Yay! Build anything with React. Interactive components in FramerX are all React-based, which means you can build upon your existing React work instead of replicating it in production. Want even more control? Create custom UI for the Properties panel, or use our powerful library to animate with React. React plus HTML and CSS. In FramerX, you can write plain React without even having to import the Framer library. Plus, you can render pure HTML elements and use CSS for styling. Animations, interactions. Use code to add animations, maintain a global state, make components communicate with each other, and more. Select custom functions directly from the Properties panel. So overrides, that's kind of examples and override, like what is going on with all this. We'll get into it later. Design and code in sync. Import design into code components and code into design components. Create a button and add states in code, or design a row and multiply it in code. Everything stays perfectly synchronized. That's really cool. So you can design a design component with all the design tools, and then you can build a code component that uses those design components in your code without duplicating them. And then you can go in and actually change the design of your components without having to change your code. It's very cool. Library imports. Leverage any of our tools, components, and helper methods from the Framer library. Build your own stacks, scroll views, custom transitions, and more. NPM. Even more packages. Extend the power of FramerX with packages from NPM, which you can easily add to your projects. Create a custom UI. Build custom interfaces that display in the FramerX property panel so that you can completely fine-tune your components. Define everything from strings and numbers to segmented controls and more. Ash Adamson from Flexport says, FramerX's React code base will allow our designers to get closer to high-fidelity implementation with engineering. All right, now let's jump into the documentation. The documentation. What's that? Okay, we'll go to the docs. Docs. Welcome to FramerX. Learn all about the new tools, components, store, code, and more. Introduction. FramerX is both the most easy and most advanced design tool. We think a subset of more advanced users will build components for everyone else, so the majority of users won't write code, but visually compose interfaces with components built by others through the store. But if you enjoy writing code, FramerX will be the best environment to do so, and we encourage everyone to explore it. The idea behind FramerX is not to generate code for you, but instead to use the code you or someone else wrote. Auto-generated code almost never ends up in production, so it's better to have a tool that can use what you already have. If you already have React components built, they should work in FramerX with minimal effort. That said, everything you draw in Framer is a React component and exportable to JSX, HTML, or static assets if you need it. Exportable to JSX. Interesting. How do you do that? Use case. Wireframing. Quickly visualize an interactive idea, layout, user flow, and information architecture. Visual design. Explore styling options for layouts, create icons and artwork, and produce high-res assets for production with pixel-level control. Interactive. Quickly turn visual parts into a prototype with navigation, different screens, advanced scrolling, and some interactive components. All without code. Expert interactive. Create real products. Invent your own interactions with state, data, physics, user input, and combine with any other JavaScript out there. Design infrastructure. Build and manage from components to entire design systems for teams, scale them to large organizations, integrate with production. All right. Canvas. Your canvas is ground zero for experimenting with concepts and designing flows. Draw directly on the canvas or insert device frames. Use these docs to learn the basics of our interface and features. The FramerX interface will be familiar to most, with a large canvas, device preview, and full-featured toolkit. Like many of the other graphic design tools, FramerX offers the same insertable shapes and text, all easily styled using the Properties panel. You can draw directly on the canvas, import vector assets, or even set up a series of frames to create a multi-screen app flow. Designing on the canvas works great for smaller interactions, but we recommend using frames for complex and responsive app flows. Navigation. Pan. When working on the canvas, you can use the Pan tool to quickly pan over your canvas. Select the Pan tool or hold down space, and click and drag to pan in any direction. Zoom. You can use the Zoom tool or use the shorthand Z to quickly zoom in and out of anything that is on your canvas. You can zoom in as far as 10% to get a great overview of all your frames, or zoom out to 10%, or zoom in all the way up to 3200% to focus on the nitty-gritty. 3200%, yeah. Direct selection. You can easily select any layer on the canvas by simply clicking on them. Often you know exactly which layer you want to select. In those cases, you can simply hold Command while you make your selection so that you are able to directly select that nested item. That is so awesome. Resize. The 4 handles around any layer can also be used to resize the layer. Select a handle and drag to resize. Hold down the Shift key and it will resize by proportion, keeping the height and the width at the same ratio. Hold down the Option key to resize both sides, either vertically, horizontally, or all sides. Rotation. When your cursor hovers just outside of the one of the 4 handles of the frame or shape, you will be able to rotate the object. Alternatively, you can use the rotation property within the Properties panel. Radius. Import. FramerX supports the Sketch plugin from Framer Studio. This means you can easily copy your artboards from Sketch and paste them into Framer. Cool. Here's an overview of specific features and tools included in the plugin. So artboards, groups, shapes, text layers, paths, Boolean operations, and symbols. Not supported nested symbols, stroke settings, masked layers, image fill, radial gradients, and angular gradients. They might add support later. Export. Exporting works exactly as you'd expect. You can create multiple exports for a single frame or shape to cater to multiple resolutions. Simply select a layer and hit export in the bottom right corner of Framer. Select one of the pre-made presets or add your own. Adding a suffix to the preset will append this to your file name. Clicking a suffix drop-down allows you to save assets to organized folders. Okay, so this guy here, and then the little drop-down for if you want to put it in folders. Let's see, they support PNG, JPEG, PDF, oh, neat. WebP, and SVG. Sweet. CSS and SVG. Right-click to copy. Copy the image, presets, yada yada. Okay. Tools. Layout. Okay, we already talked about layout. Frames. Frame positioning. Okay, let's dive into the details of frames. Layout. Where FramerX starts to feel different is in the focus and power of its layout design feature set. Our layout tools have been developed specifically for interactive design. It intuitively guesses hierarchy and layout constraints, making for a much more efficient flow when it comes to responsive design work. Create layouts that are responsive to any screen size with our Frames tool, which includes presets for desktop, iOS, and Android. To insert a frame, click the frame icon, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, yeah. Okay, wait. To create a custom frame, blah, blah. Okay. Frames aren't limited to a fixed width and height, but are instead dependent on the device you select. Draw a frame within a frame to pin it to a side and set hierarchy automatically. Frames even adapt when you resize, all while keeping UI elements like buttons, cards, and tab bars completely intact. When when one or more frames are already on your canvas, Framer automatically guesses where your next frame should be placed. Ah, that's neat. Framer automatically guesses where your next frame should be placed. Frame positioning. When you place a new frame, child, on top of another frame, parent, Framer recognizes its placement and uses smart positioning to determine its anchoring in relation to the parent frame and the child frame. This vastly increases the efficiency of a typical design workflow. If you do need to change the anchor points at any time, you can manually do so using the positioning tool in the Properties panel. Stacks. To take layouts a step further, we now have a brand new stack tool. Stacks are especially good for expressing truly fluid layouts because it can automate things such as distribution and alignment. You can use the stack tool by pressing S, then making a selection on top of all the items that you need to be placed within. Release, and voila. Everything is now automatically aligned and distributed. You can further customize your stack by using the Properties panel if you want to change the way the elements are distributed or if you want to adjust the gap and padding. Distribution. Automatic distribution of your items is where the stack tool really shines. Say you have a menu and you wish to replace the order of the items in there. When your menu is wrapped within a stack, you can simply click and drag the items to move them around, like you saw in the video. Nesting. You can even nest multiple stacks inside of larger stacks. Once grouped, you can rearrange items within each individual stack, but also within the larger group stack. And then there's the link tool. The link tool allows you to create connections between scenes. You can activate the tool by hitting L, while having a frame selected. This will display an arrow following your cursor, which you can drop on any other frame to link the two. Clicking on the first frame will now trigger a transition to the second. The link tool also comes with a wide variety of options that you can choose from. There are different transitions that you can pick from to get your flow working just the way that you want to. Default transitions: push, overlay, modal, instant, and flip. Scroll tool. The scroll tool allows you to create scrollable areas. Once created, you can link this to any frame, which will mirror the content inside of your scroll area. Make an update in the frame, and it will be reflected in your scrollable area immediately. The scroll tool also lets you choose which direction you can use your scrolling, horizontally, vertically, or both. When choosing both, you can also lock the direction to prevent diagonal scrolling. You can also select the mouse wheel to be turned on and off so that you can perfectly simulate a mobile experience. Drawing. In Framer X, we make a distinction between graphics and interactive tools. To use the Path tool or any shapes, you will first need to head to the Drawing section in the Tools panel and select Graphic, or hit G. The Graphics tool acts as a container for all your visual artwork. Once you draw a graphic container on the canvas, you'll notice that your drawing toolkit appears in the top left corner of your canvas. Path tool. Okay, I'm not interested in the drawing stuff right now. Okay, properties. Style elements of your layers like size, radius, fill, multiple shadows, gradients, and effects. Use the alignment tools and live simulation to accurately position layers for instant responsiveness. On the right side of the design canvas, you'll find a properties panel, much like any other graphics tool. It contains all the tools you need to style the properties of a particular layer. At the top of the panel is a series of align tool options. Use them to smartly position your layers within the frame and in relation to each other. Smartly. So smart. Frames. There are two types of frames in Framer X: canvas level frames and nested frames. Canvas level frames behave like screens. You can select preset devices, customize its orientation, and more. They get a white background color by default. Yeah. If you add another frame within, you will get a semi-transparent blue background color. This is how you can differentiate nested frames from canvas level frames. So that concept's, kind of confusing. There are 4 types of frame properties: layout, constraints, simulation, a generic, over opacity, radius, rotation, etc., interactive, link, and code, styling, fill, shadows, blur, etc. Text. In Framer, text is added as a layer with some smart properties of its own. A text layer will align logically based on where it is placed on the parent frame. For example, a text layer placed on the left side of a navigation bar will immediately left align and anchor there, no matter how the parent layer or frame is resized or scaled. You can alter the constraints of this automatic alignment at any time by selecting the text layer and using the positioning tool in the properties panel. Resizing text. Text layers have 2 modes that affect their size: auto and fixed. When set to auto, the width and height of the text layer will adjust according to the content and size of the text itself, and can be adjusted via custom controls in the properties panel. When set to fixed, the size of the text box can be manually adjusted. Styling. To view the styling properties of your layers, you can select one or more layers in the layer list or highlight them directly on the canvas. Framer contains all the styling properties you would expect of a modern design tool. Gradients in Framer are based on the CSS model. This means our gradients are simple: an angle and 2 color stops. Resizing a layer will not impact the gradients because it will stay true to its angle and automatically adapt to the layer size. Borders. Borders let you add a border around any layer you create in Framer. You can control the color, width, and style of the border. Because Framer is web-based, you'll be able to set border styling on individual border size for the top, right, bottom, and left of the layer. And they sorted these properly. TRBL, Turble. Multiple shadows. Multiple shadows allow you to add more than one shadow to your desired layer. From outer to inner shadows, you can stack a combination of as many shadows as you want and customize them individually. Or right-click on any shadow and select Duplicate to speed up your workflow. In Framer X, you can even animate individual shadows. Oh, neat. How do you do that? We don't know. Effects. Effects in Framer adds an extra set of styling capabilities, including blending modes and blend layers and colors, object blur to blur an entire object, or background blur to blur the layers behind it. Oh, that's cool. There are also filters like contrast, grayscale, hue, rotation, invert, saturate, and sepia for advanced photo editing. Excuse me. Let's skip preview and live preview. Well, that's just okay. Preview stuff. Toggle the cursor, toggle the hand, rotate your device. How do you toggle the hand? Click on the menu. Keep on top. Got it. Okay. And live preview. Preview your project in any browser. Share with others and open on mobile with real-time updates. Neat. Shareable. The generated link can be shared with anyone working on any corporate network from anywhere in the world. Oh, that's neat. The remote preview updates with your changes in real time, ideal for designing on-device interactions. Security. The generated link will automatically become inaccessible once your project is closed or if you stop the live preview manually. None of your project files are stored. Everything is served from your computer. That's neat. Mobile. Simply scan the QR code with the camera app to open the project. Cool. Notes. Find a list of known issues before. Performance. If you have low power mode enabled on iOS, the animations will be throttled to 30 FPS. That's good. Previewing experience. The generated link will automatically become inaccessible once your project is closed if you spot the live preview manually. None of your project files are stored. Everything is served from your computer. Fonts. You'll only be able to preview typefaces that are installed locally on your mobile device. System fonts. Unless you use some kind of code component that adds the appropriate CSS or whatever. Components. Components are reusable interactive building blocks that you can compose into larger ones to make up entire screens, interfaces, and apps. In most other graphics tools, components are visual. A picture of a button, slider, or toggle. Lol. Look, it's a photo of a button that does nothing. The big difference is that FramerX components can be interactive. They scroll, click, move, and handle input, all backed by the popular React JavaScript framework for building interfaces. To create a new component, you can navigate to the Components panel and click the New Component button located at the bottom. You can create two types of components, design and code. A design component is created by selecting an element on your canvas. A code component is created from scratch, and you'll be presented with a new TSX file. That's TypeScript with JSX. Design. First, give your design component a unique name in the layer panel. Then right-click on the layer and select Create Design Component. You can also create new design components from selection by hitting Command-K. The design components you see in the panel are referred to as a master component. All of your own master components live on the canvas. Removing them from the canvas will also remove them from the components panel. If you paste, duplicate, or drag a component from the panel to the canvas, you'll create an instance of that component. All changes made to the master will be reflected within each instance. You can still override the properties of any single instance and customize things like color, opacity, and radius, or layout options like position and size. Don't like the end result? Right-click and hit Reset Overrides to revert styling back to match the master component. Code. Interactive components are code components written in React, which links to reactjs.org. You can also render plain HTML elements and style them with CSS. So setting up your first component is easier than it may sound. In our documentation, we assume a basic knowledge of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. For a refresher or more information, please read React's Getting Started Guide. Boom, getting started. This is what it looks like. Here's some CSS. And here's your component. Here's a bunch of stuff. React. React components use JSX, an HTML-like markup language. Below, you'll find a very basic example of a React component. Notice how the render method returns something very close to plain HTML and CSS. As you learn, we highly recommend to check out the official React documentation. creation. To create a new code component, head to the Components panel in the left menu bar and click Select New Component. Then select From Code. Pick a name, no spaces, and click Create and Edit. And then it'll open in your editor if you have one installed. FramerX relies on an external editor for writing code. So if you have a code editor, if you have a code editor installed, it should automatically open. If you don't, any editor will work. Although we strongly suggest downloading one that supports TypeScript for autocomplete. We recommend using VS Code by Microsoft with the optional Prettier extension installed so your code is always formatted consistently. Now, when you open up the code editor, you will see the code powering the component, including Hello World displayed in purple text. Dragging the same component onto the canvas will make each one an instance of the original code component, no matter where you position them on your canvas. Every time you make a change to the CSS styling or text in the code editor, your saved changes will be reflected across the master and all of its instances. Canvas. Interactive components like scrolling and click handlers don't animate on the canvas to avoid distracting you from the functional aspects of layout design. But you can test your interactive components at any time by hitting the play icon to open the preview window. Layout and sizing. Every component rendered on the canvas or preview is wrapped in a frame, so they have the same layout rules as anything else on the canvas. Both the width and height are passed to the code component as props, so you can use them. Yeah, so yeah, you're gonna get width and height for free from the frame that is wrapped around your custom code component. Displaying canvas elements. Because the code determines the contents of code components, you cannot directly edit code component contents on the canvas. But often you'd like a code component to display something else from your canvas. For example, a card component could render an image with some overlay that is somewhere else on your canvas. You can accomplish this in two ways. So that was kind of confusing, but we'll discuss it further down. Using props.children. React props are basically the attributes of a component to display. And one of those is a list of children, or its contents, like in the DOM, or you see in the layer panel. Normally, these are determined from your code, but in Framer, you can set any frame on your canvas as children for your component. Let's take a look at an example. So here in your component, it's rendering the children, this.props.children, and then on your canvas, you can noodle up from an instance of this code component to any frame on your canvas, and it will render that frame in here. Framer detects that you are using the props.children property in your render method and automatically adds a connector to each instance of the component on your canvas, a purple dot on the right side, like the scroll tool. You can drag a connection from this connector to any frame on the canvas, and it will use it as its children to render. You got to kind of play with it to really know how it really works. Using canvas imports. You can easily import and use any named design component. The example below assumes you have a design component named row. Import row from canvas, and then render your row. Interesting, you can send a title to it? How does that work? Custom properties. Code components become exponentially more powerful when they use property controls, which allows you to customize the user interface of your component directly within your properties panel, our properties panel. The only thing you have to do is add a static property controls method to your class with a descriptor. It will use default props for the values and try to type check your descriptors if you added type annotations for your props. For example, this example component takes the text prop. And then you can pass this text prop into your example component inside of the FramerX UI because the property controls is defined. The property controls defines the text property control of type control type string, and the title is text. So it'll say text in the UI, and by default, it's going to use the text hello world. So see, it says text and text and text. And then text. This is where it actually uses the text that you passed in. Available controls. Controls can be described by specifying one of the following types. Boolean, that's true or false. Number, string, that's, letters and numbers and stuff, or words. Color, image, file, enum, that's like, it's like a list of options. Segmented enum, that's a list of options that instead of a drop-down box, it gives you like a little segmented button control. And fused number, that's like if you want to do like padding or margin where you've got, top right, bottom left, or you can just pass in one and it'll default that to the other ones. It's basically for padding and margin. Boolean control. Booleans use a segmented control. That's like two buttons smushed together with a little line in between. The segment tiles are true and false by default, but these can be overridden using the enabled title and disabled title. So enabled title and disabled title. So your Boolean, it normally just says true and false, but you can make it say yes and no, or awesome and lame, or whatever you want to do. Enabled title would be awesome, disabled title would be lame. Oh, that's awkward. Number control. Number controls are displayed using an input field and a slider. So, right. So in the FramerX UI, in the panel thing, you select an instance of your code component, and if you have defined a prop descriptor or whatever of type number, then it'll give you a place to type a number or a little slidey thing to slide the numbers. And here it lets you define the minimum and maximum numbers and how far to change when sliding and what the unit of the numbers means. I don't know what that means. Number controls are displayed using the min-max values can be specified to constrain the output. The default step size is 1. When a step size smaller than 1 is entered, the output will be floats, or numbers with a dot in them. When the unit type is set to percentage, that's what the unit is, the input field will display 10 as 10%. So 10%. String control. It's for type in strings. Colors, image, files. Okay, this is interesting. File controls are displayed using a file picker that shows the file name after selecting a file. The component receives an absolute URL during rendering. The allowed file types is an array containing all allowed file types, like JSON, OBJ, and Collada. What is a Collada file? I don't know. On a 3D thing? I don't know. So I guess you could use this. So you could do a code component that's like a 3D rendering thing, and then you could use a file control to define like the 3D object to render. Oh, that's neat. Enum controls. An enum control displays a pop-up button with a fixed set of string values. The option titles can be set to have nicely formatted values for the UI. Segmented enum control. A segmented enum control is displayed using a segmented control. Thanks. Since a segmented control has limited space, this only works for a tiny set of string values. Fused number control. So this is useful for like if you want to do, ABCD or a few, just like, 4 or 5 really short options. Fused number control. The fused number control is specifically created for border radius, border width, and padding. It allows setting a numeric value by either using a single input or by using 4 separate number inputs. The user can switch from a 1 input to 4 by toggling a Boolean. You click a thing and it'll switch. Hiding controls. Controls can be hidden by implementing the hidden function on the property description. The function receives an object containing the set properties and returns a Boolean. In the following example, we hide the InCall Boolean control when the connected property is false. Connected and InCall. Network component. So if you're not connected, then you can't possibly be in a call. That makes sense. So it just hides this option, so you can't even set it true or false. Got it. So overrides. What are overrides? Add animations and interactions to any frame with code overrides, and build entire projects with state to communicate between different components. This seems really powerful. So what is this exactly? Code overrides are simple JavaScript functions that facilitate communication between components. You can write them yourself and apply to any frame or component on your canvas. These functions allow you to override styling properties like opacity and fill, but they also allow for interactivity and animation. Code overrides can live in any component file in your project. They get discovered as they use the override type specifier. See example below. So if you use this, then it's going to show up in the UI. Okay. Yeah. Okay. You can apply any code override to any frame or component on the canvas from the Properties panel under Code. And every component is also a frame. So everything is a frame. It's frames all the way down. Hence, Framer. See a simple example below. This will reset the color of a frame to red, regardless of the background you set on the canvas. Take that! Lol. Okay, that's neat. Events. For anything interactive, you need events. Events are things that happen, like a click, tap, swipe, but also video ended or device rotated. They consist of a type and a handler with code that needs to run when the event happens. Because you can't set event handlers, from the interface in FramerX today, you need to set them with a code override. Event types in Framer allow the same style as in JavaScript or React, like onClick, onTap, onScroll, etc. Let's create a very simple event handler that logs a message to the console with console.log when you click it. Okay, so we import override from Framer. We're exporting a const called logtap that is of type override. And what an override is a function that takes a props object and returns an object. And then that object, all the things on that object, all the properties of that object get added to the frame that you added the override to. Cool. Okay, applied the code override to any frame on the canvas and click it in the preview. If you open the preview console, right bottom icon in the menu, you will see multiple hello messages in the console tab. Neat. Animations. The Framer JavaScript library comes with a set of advanced animation helpers for high-performant, accelerated graphics that work well with FramerX. They work very well with overrides to animate any frame on your canvas. Let's create a code override to animate the scale of a frame on a click. Okay, so we get override, animatable, and animate from Framer. We import them. We define a constant variable? I don't know. A constant of scale value, which is animatable. Yeah, so scale value is an animatable thing that starts at 1. And then we export an override named scale up. And it takes, the props as they all do. And then defines the scale. And then, so the scale of the, okay, so we have a frame. Okay, so we have the app Framer open. In Framer, we have a document open, a FramerX file open, and on the canvas there is a frame. Now within that frame, there's yet another frame. That frame is either a component or just a regular frame, and inside of that frame is like whatever graphics or whatever we want to render. So on that frame, we set, in the panel, we set the code override to scale up. So what it does is it grabs the code from scale up, applies that, it runs this function, it grabs all the properties of the frame, passes it into this function, and then this function returns this other object that has the scale and on tap properties, and then FramerX under the hood applies those properties to the frame. Basically an override is a way, basically it's imagine if you had unlimited capabilities inside of in the panel. So the panel on the side defines all the properties of the thing that you have selected, like the background color, or the blur, or the border radius or whatever. And they've got UI for most of it, for all the basics. But for things they don't have UI for at the moment, you can use in the override. So an override is code that is basically the panel on the side. Yes, that makes sense, kind of. So if you want to set the scale of your frame, you can set that. Can you set scale in the UI right now? I don't know. But you cannot set the on tap of a frame in the UI right now, or define what happens when you tap something. So you need to use an override. An override is how you set these things. And here's the code that you need to do in order to set these things on a thing. It also lets you do all kinds of wacky, advanced, nifty, keen, zippity, zowie, wow stuff, but, whatever. So your scale value is an animatable thing. So you're making the scale of this thing animatable and starting at a scale of 1. And then you are defining what happens when you tap it. When you tap it, this thing happens. The animate, so this function here, animate, using spring animation, it springs this value from whatever it currently is to 1.5. Got it. I understand, I think. Yeah. I'm tempted to build some kind of custom UI to define and set and noodle around with overrides. Yes. But I'm not gonna, because I'm busy. After we import the right parts from the Framer library, we create a new animatable number called scale value. With a default value of 1. We use this value to set the scale property initially, and we animate it with a spring curve after a click. See? Animate with a spring curve. You can also separate the animation from the click event, so you can click on one frame and animate another. Ooh, neat. How do you do that? Just connect the scale up code override to one of the frames, so it sets the scale property to the scale value. Connect the other frame to scale button, which animates the scale value on a click. And my response is, what? What? Huh? Okay, this is kind of advanced. Okay, so wait. What is happening exactly? They're exporting this from inside of this other one? Is this like a typo? Did they miss a thing here? What's going on? Oh, I see. Yeah, this is just a typo. They missed a bracket here. So there are two overrides in this file. They're defining they're sharing state between these two overrides. Okay. All right. So imagine you have your framer, your window open. You've got two frames next to each other. Like, say, one is a button and one is a, I don't know, a picture of a mouse. Boom. Why not? Why a mouse? I don't know. And then you let's say the mouse, you set the scale up, override on the mouse, which basically just sets the scale of the mouse to 1, but it's an animatable 1. And it's an animatable 1 that this other override can noodle around with. Yeah. So on your button component, or your button frame, well, I guess a component is also a frame. So you select that guy, and then in your code, in your in your overrides, you set it to scale button. And this is really confusing. You set that to, so you grab your little button, and then in the override you set it to scale button, and now that button is invisibly linked to your mouse graphic frame. Just go with me. Behind the hood in Codeland, so that when you click or tap, actually, when you tap on the button, it animates the scale value that is attached to the mouse graphic. So effectively, what you do is when you click the thing, this thing animates. Whee, from big to small. Whee, yay. Okay. Yes. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I need to noodle around with the code a little bit to just like really understand it. But man, that missing curly, that missing mustache was really confusing for a few seconds. Okay, code overrides. That's really powerful. That's really, really powerful. Like, really. Ooh, an API is coming soon. Oh, dude. Shortcuts. There's a bunch of shortcuts. Look them up at your leisure. Now for some super legit documentation. All right, now we're going. All right. FramerX has launched. Please find our official documentation at all the docs I just read, and our resources via whatever that means. Resources. Tutorial videos and stuff. Oh my. Okay. I'll look through that later. FramerX has launched. Please find our... Oh, yeah, we just read that. Okay. We are actively updating both the documentation and resources as we go, but feel more than welcome to reach out to support@framer.com if you find anything missing. Welcome. Thanks for joining the beta program. Yay. This guide is very much a work in progress towards the final release. It's already been released. Feel free to send us feedback or make suggestions on GitHub directly. Nah. The best way to start. Tolder. Read How to Think About FramerX and supported design work below. There we go. How to Think About FramerX. Oh, it's right below here. Okay. Read the beta program page. Explore the canvas, blah, blah, blah. Okay. How to think about FramerX. FramerX is quite different from other design tools. It aims to blend canvas and code, as well as design and development, to support a new, more natural and efficient way of designing digital products. FramerX is more like Unity than Photoshop, an IDE for design, if you will, an integrated development environment. FramerX can do many different things, from wireframing to visual design to screen flows to design systems to interactive component programming. We expect most users to only use what they need based on their project or skill level. FramerX is both the most easy and most advanced design tool, and they ain't kidding. We think a subset of more advanced users will build components for everyone else, so the majority of users won't write code. but visually compose interfaces with components built by others through the store. But if you enjoy writing code, FramerX will be the best environment to do so, and we encourage everyone to explore it. The idea behind FramerX is not to generate code for you. No. But instead to use the code you or someone else wrote. Auto-generated code almost never ends up in production, so it's better to have a tool use the code that is being used. That needs to be bold. If you already have React components built, they should work in FramerX with minimal effort. That said, everything you draw in Framer is a React component and exportable to JSX, HTML, or static SX assets if you need to. How do you export it to JSX? I don't know. I don't think you can right now. Supported design workflows. I mean, I figured out a way to kind of figure out a way to kind of do it manually, but, you know, that's neither here nor there. Supported design workflows. The goal of FramerX is to support many types of workflows, and with that, many types of users at different skill levels, but to never hold you back and even encourage you to explore more. The list below is an example of parts of FramerX you would need for different design tasks. Make sure to check our beta feature list to make sure what is available today. So you got your wireframing, visual design, interactive, expert interactive, design infrastructure, and stuff like that. Next, get started. Welcome to the Framer. Download, subscription, getting help, beta program, beta features, feature overview. Okay, the crossed out items are not on beta yet, so we do not have design component organization. We do not have store update or private company store yet. There's no sharing yet, but apparently that's coming. Code overrides, code library. There's no events and there's no gestures yet, but apparently that's coming. Blah, blah, blah. Windows. We are working on bringing FramerX to Windows as well. Yes. Sign up for our special Windows list to get a message as soon as it is ready. Okay, starting from nothing. Canvas. Your canvas is ground zero for experimenting in blah, blah, blah. Hand zoom, yada, yada. Rotation. Next, tools. Nothing. Layout. Okay. Frames and shapes. Frames. Shapes are SVG. Elements. Frames are like divs. Differences. Framer is both a layout and drawing tool in one. Layout is defined using frames that allow you to quickly set up the structure of an interface, including automatic layout rules that depend on the frame, its size and position. Icons or illustrations typically need a fixed layout between the different elements. For example, if you draw an icon, you'll always want each element to scale proportionally, so layout rules won't really make sense here. To position an icon within an interface, simply wrap it in a frame by hitting Command-Enter. Oh, that's nice. Can frames be nested? Yes. Frames can be nested within frames to define layout elements, but like navigation bars, tab bars, cards, buttons, and more. How do I make my icons adaptive? Out of frame. To make your icons scale automatically with your UI. Can I export frames to SVG? Yes! If a frame only contains SVG shapes, it can be exported as SVG. Can I export SVG with a custom view box? Yes! If a frame contains a single SVG element, it could be exported as SVG. You just said that before. By resizing the frame, you can influence the view box. Neat. Layouts. Positioning. Frames are automatically positioned within FramerX. So when you are designing for different screen sizes, you won't need to continuously change the width of the elements on your canvas. Framer will just do this for you. How this works is that you tell Framer the distance from the border of the outer frame, and it will then use the remaining area to calculate the height and width of your element. So instead of placing your design on an XY axis, you just tell the margins instead. Okay, automatic hierarchy. By focusing on automatic hierarchy and relative layout positioning, FramerX lives up to the demands of modern-day interface design. When you place a layer on the canvas in Framer, it is smart enough to guess the layer's hierarchy based on the visual position. This sequencing will also be noted in the order displayed in the layer panel. In this way, almost everything you place on the canvas will be ordered according to the parent-child relationship. Because we automatically guess hierarchy this way, you won't have to worry about grouping any longer. Oh, that's such a huge deal. Seriously. Seriously a huge deal. Stacks, how it works. To take layouts a step further, we now have a brand new stacks tool. Stacks are especially good at expressing truly fluid layouts because it can automate such things as distribution and alignment. You can use the stack tool by pressing S and then making a selection on top of all the items that need to be fitted inside of it. Release, and voila. Everything is now perfectly aligned and distributed within the frame. You can further customize the stack by using the Properties panel. Distribution, nesting, tutorial. Neat, okay. Drawing. Blah, 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 blah. Interactive. Link. Scroll tool, options, nesting, import, export, import a bunch of stuff, not yet supported from Sketch support, not yet supporting all this Sketch stuff. Export, not seeing any JSX export yet. Properties, frame properties, You can alter the properties of your frame, such as changing its fill color, size, or position to test the responsive nature of your frames. Overflow. If a layer is going to fall outside of the dimensions of your frame, then you can choose to either display or hide the overlay. Overflow hidden or overflow visible. Layer styling. Fill, color, linear gradient, borders, effects. Effects add an extra set of styling capabilities. Including blending modes to blend layers and colors, object blur to blur an entire object, or background blur to blur the layers behind it. There are also filters like contrast, grayscale, hue, rotate, invert, saturate, and sepia for advanced photo editing. Additional features. In this, forward and back. Use this to quickly reorder hierarchy. Select a layer, right-click on it, and set forward and back. Okay, duplicate, delete, remove a frame. Select a frame and right-click, remove frame, or a shortcut command backspace will only remove the current frame. It will not affect the child layers it contains. Oh, that's cool. So command enter to create a frame around the thing that you've got selected, or command backspace to delete a frame that undo that. Preview, devices, options, toggle, blah, blah, blah. Live preview. Neat. Very cool. Components. Conceptual. Okay, here we go. Conceptual. Components are like Legos for your interface. They are small building blocks that you can compose into larger ones, making up entire screens, interfaces, and apps. As a designer, you might have different definitions of components as most visual tools treat components as pictures of real components. In FramerX, the components are all real. They scroll, click, move, and handle input, all backed by the popular React JavaScript framework for building interfaces. P.S. Please, Lego, don't sue me for this analogy. Haha. Types of components. FramerX has two types of components, which it treats the same because they are ultimately all the same under the hood. React components. Design components. Ooh, there's a link. Components that you draw on the canvas, consisting of visual and basic interaction that you can express on the canvas. Everyone can build these. Design components are fully editable on the canvas. And code components. Components that are backed by code with React. They can be anything from simple HTML and CSS all the way to advanced JavaScript, optionally building on other libraries again. Code components are only editable from code, but they can display other frames from the canvas via the children prop or canvas imports. Any component can be displayed on the canvas, but interactive components like scroll or something with a click only work in the preview. Both design and code components can be composed into a hierarchy on the canvas. Design components can even contain code components, and every component has the same automatic layout option as any frame. A FramerX project lists all components in that specific project under the Components tab on the left. Components can originate from your project canvas, your project code, and installed packages. All right, well, I'll have to get all into the rest of the stuff later. Goodbye.